Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. As we turn the corner to November, we're talking about sorghum research and some takeaways from the field studies that you can actually use right now.
Well, we've had a lot going on in sorghum. There's been a lot of questions posed. One of the biggest questions has been, of course, sugarcane aphid. It's the thing that we've talked about quite often over the last couple years. Between myself, we were looking at different hybrids and how well they respond to actual sugarcane aphids being in there and us not managing them. So how well they actually sustain those aphids and that pest pressure during the course of the year, as well as looking at different insecticides. Dr. Tom Royer, Dr. Chris Giles has looked extensively at how we manage the insecticides that we have to kind of make them long-term efforts to where we don't get any resistance issues or anything like that, and a couple of new ones that are coming down the pipe as well. So that's kind of been a focus of the sorghum group over the last year. One of them is planting date. We've seen growers be kind of loose with their planting date on sorghum. Kind of going into mid-May. What we found this year is that if you plant past about May 10th, we're seeing up to a 25% yield reduction in your yields. Even though we had a kind of a mild summer, we didn't have those really high 100 degrees for multiple weeks at a time, and still yet those 2 weeks between May 10th and about May 20th really caused a big chunk of yield to come off that crop. And then the other thing that we kind of saw this year that I think we're having a little bit of issue with in our grower fields is fertility of sorghum. We always like to have about 1 pound to 1.25 pounds of nitrogen go out per bushel we expect in that sorghum crop. So if we're going out and we're putting out 70 pounds of nitrogen, we can probably expect 60 bushels of sorghum. If we want to push towards that 100, we need to make sure that nitrogen fertility is kind of being pushed up quite a bit throughout the year.
In terms of that planning for next year, now's the time to start thinking about what that plan is in order to have better results next time around.
Yeah, it's hard to start thinking about summer when we're standing outside and it's freezing right now, but it's what we need to do if we want to push ourselves to that next level. We have decent sorghum yields, or this can go for all of our summer crops: soybean yields, corn yields, cotton yields. Now's the time to start looking at how I can make that system better. It's fresh in our mind. We know what we did last summer. Let's not wait until March to try to figure out what we did last June. It's now is that what we need to do to kind of start shifting our management practices, shifting our farming operation. One of the biggest things is a lot of times this is the time to start selecting your cultivar. And once again, for sorghum, a lot of our companies throughout the state offer deals or discounts or what have you for getting your hybrids ordered now. That way they can get them into the state. It also allows you to get the exact hybrid you want instead of just taking whatever the local sales or local distribution center has at that time. So now is the time to start looking at your hybrid. The sorghum hybrid tests are available. All of our local county educators have received them. So if you want a little bit more insight, go see your local guys. They're going to have all the good details that you can go and select it. And like I said, this is the time to look at those hybrids. But it's also time to start pulling those yield maps off your combine. Start looking at problem areas of the field, maybe low spots, low fertility areas that we might need to go out and start soil sampling, because once again, now's the time to start preparing for next year's summer crops.
A lot of strategy there, maybe more than some people might think about, but the tools are there to help for future success.
Yeah, the tools are there, and the people. If you have questions, the people from the local guys to your area ag educators, as well as the state representatives as well.
Now, you and the team are also gearing up for Winter Crop School. Tell us a little bit about that.
Winter Crop School is our annual event that we have going into a lot of our research finding, a lot of the big details on how to grow crops here in the state of Oklahoma. And we just talked about how difficult it can be and all those decision mechanisms that go into it. This is kind of a good first stop shop to get a lot of these answers. But December 12th and 13th here in Stillwater, registration should be coming up pretty soon. And so it's something to kind of put on your radar.
And I bet there's coffee always on the agenda
Always
too.
Coffee.
Okay, we look forward to hearing more about it. Josh, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
across the southern plains and certainly here in Oklahoma, cow-calf producers spend millions of dollars each year on vaccines in order to protect their animals against various kinds of diseases. Handling and taking care of those vaccines before they're actually used is extremely important. Research has shown us that if some of these vaccines are stored incorrectly, we can really lose the effectiveness of that particular product, and it won't give the calf or the cow that we're going to vaccinate the immunity that we wish. If you look on the vaccine that you buy next time when you visit your a local farm or feed store and purchase vaccines, or from your local veterinarian, look on the box or the insert. And what you'll find generally is that if you look in the fine print, it will tell you to store that vaccine at 35 to either 45 or 46 degrees. And that's very, very important. As we said, research has shown us that when we get outside of those ranges, we can do some damage. I think that's really, really critical to remember if we're going to store our vaccine in a refrigerator that's in a tack room, in a barn, especially during the coldest parts of winter. We think about the refrigerator as something to keep them cool. Well, we don't want that vaccine to freeze either. So if we're storing it out in an unheated barn and it can get certainly below freezing in those barns, then we can do some real damage to those vaccines. So I would really suggest that what you do is go to one of the local box stores, just like I did. And you can buy a little digital thermometer just like this one and put it in your refrigerator to see if it's maintaining that temperature between 35 and 45 degrees as the vaccine insert would suggest. Research done at the University of Arkansas and at Idaho has indicated that we don't do a particularly good job of keeping our refrigerators at the right temperature. In the Arkansas data, only 26% of the farms that they checked was the refrigerator staying between 35 and 45 degrees 95% of the time. And that number was only a little bit better in Idaho at about 34% of those where vaccines were being stored staying within that proper range. So check yours. You can buy this little kind of digital thermometer for less than $10. Stick it in that refrigerator and check it every so often. Keep that in mind as we work cattle this year or any year. Let's make sure that the quality of the vaccine that we're purchasing stays as good as possible while we store it on our farm or ranch before we give it to those animals that are going to need that immunity. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Along with Halloween, the end of October brought scares of winter's freezing weather. Last Saturday morning, October 28th, we had freezing temperatures across all of Oklahoma. The Panhandle had the broadest spread in low temperatures on October 28th. Lows range from 18 degrees at Buffalo to 32 degrees at Kenton. The coldest Mesonet site in southern Oklahoma was Bernieville, with a chilling 22-degree morning low. Wind chills added to the cold. It felt like 7 degrees in Buffalo. There were many Oklahoma locations where it felt like it was in the teens. Bernieville's wind chill was a frigid 15 degrees. For most Mesonet sites, October 28th was only one morning with freezing temperatures. Eva in the Panhandle had 8 frigid mornings in October. Over in eastern Oklahoma, folks in Nowata, Bristow, Westville, and Cookson had 5 frigid October mornings. October as a whole was close to average for temperatures for the month. A map of departure from average temperatures had lots of zeros, showing they were right on the average. There were a few sites at 1 degree below average, more at 1 degree above average, and only one site, Watonga, at 2 degrees above average. Here's Gary with a drought update and a look ahead.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, October's in the books. It was a little bit warm, although as Al mentioned, we did see a hard freeze over much of the state. And for precipitation, well, it was all over the place. Let's take a look at the drought monitor first and see where we're at there. Basically the same picture we've seen over the last couple of weeks. We have that dry weather and even a little bit of moderate drought down in southeastern Oklahoma, a little bit of that abnormally dry up in northeastern Oklahoma, but we do see an expansion of the abnormally dry up in northwestern Oklahoma. So a little bit farther down into Woodward County and over into Woods County, over into Alfalfa County. So while we do see that little spot of moderate drought remaining in Harper County, that's where we're worried about that spread possibly to the south and to the east a little bit. So something to keep in mind there. If we take a look at the last 30 days, the percentage of normal rainfall, we do see some areas of the state starting to dry out. This part of the state up in the northwest where we did see that increase in abnormally dry conditions, that part of the state has seen from 40 to 50 or 60% of normal rainfall over the last 30 days. But even more drastic deficits down across south central Oklahoma and again in the far southeast. So even though we did have that big blob of humongous moisture up in north central, down into central Oklahoma, over into the northeast, there are parts of the state that have been drying out. What about our prospects for November? It looks dry for the time being, and the Climate Prediction Center tends to agree. So a little bit warm, a little bit dry, it looks like, according to the Climate Prediction Center. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
The cooler temperatures are perfect for a special event that truly brings together an entire community. For an old-time hot meal and carnival, SUNUP's Curtis Hare takes us to Wahita County.
Fall traditions. Whether it's watching football on Saturdays or enjoying pumpkins in about a million ways, many families and communities have their own special tradition. In Wahita County, it's beans.
This is our biggest fundraiser for the county.
About 600 people cram in the Cordell Activity Center for the 4-H bean supper to load up on that magical fruit. Wahita County Extension educator Dana Church says it's a lifeline for the 4-H program.
All of our money tonight will go to programming and supplies and awards for all the kids throughout the year. Whether we're doing a livestock event or whether we're doing a painting class, all of these monies go to support our 4-H programming throughout the year.
From Clover Buds to 4-Hers in high school, everyone pitches in.
We have volunteer leaders that are helping in the kitchen right now that have been volunteer leaders. They were first 4-Hers, then parents, volunteer leaders, and they just don't retire from being volunteers.
Everyone here come from towns all across Wahita County. It's a long-standing tradition going back 39 years.
Well, it started in 1978, and we were at a state 4-H leaders conference trying to figure out what we would do for a fundraiser. We just started brainstorming, actually, and came up with the Bean Supper and Carnival idea for a fundraiser.
Barbara Hatfield and Carol Price are the architects of the event. It was a hit from the start.
Oh, it was great. For years, I mean, the first year we had it, it was like we served well over 800 people. And it was just a wonderful community activity. It was easy and cheap, and we'd make lots of money. And we would make enough money to run the 4-H program for the year.
What comes to my mind is it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a county to raise a bunch of good kids.
After scarfing down some beans, it's time for the carnival.
There's like almost 20 games of different sorts, from basketball to the bouncy house to pin the clover on the skeleton, and so the kids can meander through and play the game of their choice and get prize tickets.
Clover Bud's Ruth Mosier and Easton Wall helped put the dinner together earlier in the night. While they're getting the chance to win tickets at the carnival, having the opportunity to give back is the big highlight.
Well, I can't say the word. It's like to do my part and be best and do what they need and help out others.
What's your favorite thing to do at the carnival?
To win prize and sometimes to just give kids that don't have a lot of tickets to give some.
We learn like to help others, and we learn a lot of stuff.
It really warms my heart that all of these supporters have come to not only like visit with one another. It's kind of a tradition and a community spirit going on here, but they know that their money is going to a worthwhile cause.
Let's just hope it continues for another 39 years. Yeah.
In Wahita County, I'm Curtis Hare.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here with us now. Kim, Oklahoma's cash wheat price continues to decline. Give us an idea of what's going on.
Well, that wheat price is getting down close to where it was November this time last year, and then it just wallowed around, and then January, February we got a little price rally out of it, and it may be like that. I think what's going on is Russia's just taking everybody's market. They've harvested 3 billion bushels or more of wheat. The average protein is 12.4%, so they've got that protein market, and that protein market is extremely important right now. You've got Ukraine right behind them with record or near record production, and they're taking the market. They've taken the market from European Union, from Australia, from Argentina. They're even shipping wheat into Venezuela, and that's that Argentine market right there. So the world's awash of wheat, and Russia's got some good product to put on the market, and they're taking our export sales.
Now, some of the questions that market analysts are asking right now is how planted acres this year compare to last year.
Well, the general consensus and the answer I understand they're getting, it's going to be down somewhere from 5 to 10%, so they're using about 7.5%. I think that's about right for Oklahoma. Last year we planted 4.5 million acres. That gets us down, at 10%, down near 4 million acres, and that's the lowest that we've been in since around 42, or go back to 1918 would be the 2 years that we were below 4.1 or 4.2 million acres.
What's the market offering then for the new 2018 wheat crop?
Well, you look at that KC July contract, it's around 470. The base is running, say, about 80 under. That'll give you about 390. Some areas it's 95 under, some areas 70 under, but somewhere right at $4 or just below $4.
There's always high hopes this time of year as the seeds are getting in the ground. Is there any way that wheat producers can get $5 wheat?
Yes, there is, and I think it's going to depend on good management and a little bit of luck. Now, I don't think we're going to get our lower acres. I don't think it's going to help us much. We were down this last year and we got about the same price. What's going to help producers is if they can produce test weight and protein. The world is awash in wheat, but there is a shortage of protein, not just wheat protein, but protein. You see producers raising soybeans and around the world going to the pulse crops to generate protein or produce protein. If we can produce protein and test weight, we'll have $5 wheat. You give me 11.6 to 12 protein wheat and 59 or better test weight, and I believe the market will give you $5 and maybe even closer to $6. The market needs protein.
And a lot of people like the sound of those prices. Kim, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Most small ruminant producers realize that the #1 health problem that we have in sheep and goats is gastrointestinal parasites, or what we commonly refer to as worms. And when we treat these animals and they don't respond, we usually think, one, we waited too late to start our treatment, or second, those worms are resistant to the dewormers we used. And those are two probably good reasons why we do have failure of treatment. But one other reason that we might have failure of treatment is that we're not dealing with gastrointestinal parasites. We're actually dealing with another disease. And one of those diseases that really mimics worms in sheep and goats is diseases called Johne's. It infects the lower portion of the small intestines, which results in the intestine not being able to absorb the nutrients out of the food that's eaten. And these animals will literally starve to death, even though they have a really good appetite. Most animals are infected at a very early age. The organism can be found in manure, milk, and colostrum of infected animals. The organism is very slow growing, so most of the animals that are infected will be at least 2 years old up to 7 years old before they begin to get sick. The most common sign that we see in sheep and goats is weight loss. Animals with Johne's disease, a lot of times in the later stages, will get bottle jaw. They will be anemic, which mimics what we usually see in gastrointestinal parasites. Diagnosing Johne's can be difficult. As we've stated before, the organism grows very slow, so cultures take a long time. I strongly recommend that you get a veterinarian involved if you think you have a problem with Johne's and devise a plan to try to get it diagnosed. There is no treatment for Johne's. The disease is always fatal. If you get Johne's in your herd and you start to control it, you have to control the disease through managing the manure, keeping everything as clean as possible, and eliminating those animals that are affected. If you'd like more information about Johne's disease, if you will go to SUNUP at okstate.edu, we'll put some information there for you.
A big part of habitat management for white-tailed deer is increasing food resources. But typically, landowners are focused mostly on food resources during hunting season. But that's actually not when deer have the highest nutritional demands. You need to think about the full calendar year, particularly food that is going to be available during the early summer when they're developing antlers or when they're nursing fawns. These are when they really have incredibly high nutrition demands. And so if you want to increase food resources during the whole year, you need to think about more than just a food plot. Do this through creating forested openings or thinning our forest. A simple way is to pick areas on your property that are eastern red cedar. Usually those areas have very little in the understory for whitetails. In those spots we can just cut the cedar down and burn, which is what's been done here. And then if you just maintain that with fire, maybe once every 3 to 7 years, you can keep that in a composition that'll really be beneficial for deer and meet their nutritional needs. So think about nutrition beyond just the hunting season. Think about what deer actually are consuming throughout the year, which is mostly forbs, broadleaf plants, and vines and shrubs. They do not consume a lot of grasses. So if your property is dense grass, you might think about practices like prescribed fire that can get more broadleaf plants on the property.
Finally, today we're talking Bedlam football. The rivalry between OU and OSU is storied and fierce, except when it comes to turf grass. We caught up with our turf grass scientist to talk turf technology and the reason why OSU will always have the home field advantage, regardless of where the teams play.
We feel the team feels a great sense of pride in the development of these products. We've put a lot of hard work in it. Well, the turfgrass team is excited concerning the release of OKC 1131. We've been working hard in recent years as well, continuing to try to keep outstanding winter hardiness in a Bermuda grass and still improve the texture and density and color and performance in terms of traffic tolerance. It's going to be available only in vegetative form. It seldom flowers and it does not produce viable seed, so it's going to have to be vegetatively propagated, such as sprigs or sod. At this time, the Technology Development Center at OSU is negotiating for finding commercial growers of the product. So right now, it's not available for purchase even though it's been released. First of all, we are talking about an interspecific hybrid Bermuda grass. They deliver outstanding quality, but there is maintenance expectations. These are not low maintenance grasses. These are also grasses that aren't adapted well to cutting heights at 3 and 4 inches. They're lower growing grasses, and you're going to have to cut them fairly close. So for instance, if one would like any of these modern hybrid Bermudas on a lawn, they really should be looking at mowing heights no higher than 1.5 inches. Modern turf breeding program for Bermuda grass at Oklahoma State started in 1986, but actually varieties weren't released until the early 2000s. The varieties of improved turf type Bermuda grasses were Yukon, the first seeded turf type improved Bermuda grass with improved cold hardiness or winter hardiness, followed closely by the release Riviera. And in fact, Riviera was used on the 2008 Beijing Olympics on the baseball fields. It wasn't but a short time after the release of Riviera that Patriot Bermuda grass was released. That was our first turf type vegetatively propagated interspecific hybrid Bermuda grasses. Well, Patriot received use on several professional stadiums around the U.S., but also it can still be found on OSU's hedge practice field. During the 2010 time period, OSU released 2 improved hybrid Bermuda grasses, and those were the lines OKC 1119, which was named Latitude 36, and also OKC 1134, which was named Northbridge. Those Bermuda grasses are used around Oklahoma on both lawn and also sports field applications, most notably at OU's field, Owen Stadium. Latitude 36 is used for the game field, and also on their practice fields they use Northbridge. We think it's great. We want to see our groups, perform well. We're all Oklahomans. We love to see other state schools win, but of course when you play OSU, we would like to see OU lose. We're still working on trying to get a grass that turns orange during the game for a short period of time in celebration of the Cowboys, but we haven't got there, but we're still trying.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online on our website, sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.